Interviewer. What is the test scenario for the software application? Candidate. A test scenario for a software application is a high-level description of a particular functionality or feature of the application that needs to be tested. Interviewer. Can you give an example of a test scenario you created for a recent project? Candidate. Yes. For a web application that allowed users to upload files, I created a test scenario that verified the file upload functionality. The scenario included testing the maximum file size limit, testing different file formats, and checking for error messages when the upload failed. Interviewer. How do you prioritize test scenarios when there are too many to test within a given time frame? Candidate. I usually prioritize test scenarios based on their criticality and impact on the end users. I start with the high priority scenarios that cover the most critical functionality and then move to the lower priority scenarios. Interviewer. Can you explain how you design a test scenario? Candidate. Sure. I typically start by identifying the feature or functionality to be tested. Then, I define the inputs and actions required to test that feature, as well as the expected outputs. I also consider any edge cases or boundary conditions that may affect the testing. Interviewer. Can you explain how you execute a test scenario? Candidate. Yes. I first prepare the test environment and any required test data. Then, I execute the test scenario step by step, recording any observations or issues that arise. I also capture screenshots and log files as evidence for any issues encountered during the testing. Finally, I document the test results and report any defects to the development team. Interviewer. Can you provide an example of how you modified a test scenario when the requirements changed? Candidate. Yes. In a project where the requirement changed to include a new feature, I updated the test scenario to include the new feature. I also reviewed the existing scenarios to ensure that they were still valid and updated them if necessary. I also performed regression testing to ensure that the changes did not impact any existing functionality. Interviewer. Can you give an example of a usability test scenario? Candidate. One scenario we tested was to ensure that the user interface was intuitive and easy to navigate. We also tested that the application's terminology and language were consistent and easy to understand. Additionally, we tested that the application provided helpful error messages and feedback to the user. Interviewer. Can you give an example of a test scenario you developed for a financial application? Candidate. One test scenario I developed was for the transfer of funds between accounts. The scenario involved verifying that the transfer amount was within the user's account balance, that the transfer was processed within the specified time frame, and that the user received a confirmation of the transaction. We also tested the scenario with different types of accounts and currencies to ensure that the transfer process worked for all types of transactions.